Hello folks, it's me, DeMontropolis, and today I'll be looking at Kirby's Adventure. Released in 1993 on the NES and developed by HAL Laboratory, it's easy to believe that this is the first game in the series, as Kirby's Adventure was the game to introduce copy abilities in the first place, making it at the very least as influential as Kirby's Dream Land before it. Although 1993 is a very late release for the NES, there is a specific reason why. HAL was going through financial problems at this time, as a result of their 1991 Famicom game, Metal Slayer Glory, underperforming, and that game had an expensive development cycle lasting more than 4 years. Although HAL was bought by Nintendo in 1993, they wanted a game that could be developed and sold as quickly as possible, and instead of going for the more advanced and costly 16-bit system, HAL stuck with their familiar 8-bit NES instead, a console that has been on the market for 8 years at this point. The project originally started as a simple port of Kirby's Dream Land to the NES, but this presented a problem. Kirby's Dream Land was aimed at beginners, which ended up receiving criticism for not offering enough value to experienced players besides the cracked out extra game. So development shifted towards creating a new game. I'll share more tidbits of development as I go along, but now I think we're ready to dive into the review for one of the most ambitious action platformers ever made on the NES, Kirby's Adventure. That little drawing intro is the first showcase of this game's improved presentation, making Kirby really stand out. Along with that charming title screen, Kirby is nice enough to provide a tutorial telling you everything you need to know about Kirby's moveset and what he can do in a nutshell, which is especially important as he's gained many new moves in this game. Running, sliding, and a few copy abilities are covered, including the showcase of a unique palette for the mid-boss Bugsy, a yellow color not seen in the actual game. The game's story is even given a proper prologue that leans into the mythos of Dreamland. One day, Kirby was hit with a mysterious crisis, as he and the rest of the residents couldn't dream at all, leaving them with restless sleep. To figure out the cause, Kirby briefly visits a sacred area called the Dream Spring, aka the Fountain of Dreams, which supplies the residents with good dreams in the first place. The fountain is specifically powered by a legendary artifact called the Star Rod, and Kirby learns that naughty King Dedede was not only desecrating its holy waters with his gluttonous presence, but he has broken up the Star Rod into 7 pieces and gave the other 6 to his strongest allies. Why? Who cares? It's King Dedede. And with that impulsive mentality, Kirby sets out on a grand adventure to recover the Star Rod and bring back dreams for the good people of Dreamland. Now let's talk about some of these new moves, because there's quite a lot of them. Kirby has gotten some basic movement additions like dashing forward as a way of running quickly and sliding. Sliding even has the benefit of damaging lesser enemies, but both movements are notable for giving Kirby a lot of momentum for traversal. The best way to pull this off with running is to jump off a slope and you'll cover a lot of air. Sliding right off a ledge also gives Kirby a huge burst of movement, and it's really satisfying to do. You can even chain this stuff together on occasion just for the fun of it, and there's so many areas to do so. Kirby's spit attack also got a nice upgrade called the Double Star Spit. By inhaling at least 2 objects, Kirby's already damaging star gets upgraded into a sparkling star, which does nearly double the damage and pierces through enemies. It's especially satisfying to pull off against the mid-bosses, as it's one of the strongest attacks in the game and can end a fight near instantly, but only if you have the ammunition to pull off the technique. Kirby can still fly here, though one of my criticisms with the previous game was that you can skip so much just by flying over everything. In fact, flying almost got removed entirely from this game to prevent players from bypassing too many hazards, which is crazy to think about, given how often Kirby bumps his body on everything. To compensate for its inclusion, flying around has been nerfed in speed, so much so that the game becomes unplayable and punishing if you choose to only fly, as not only is it slower, but there are more frequent enemy attacks covering the ceiling that will cheaply hit you if you stay up there. There are also actual water controls for Kirby to swim around in the pool. Water sections aren't really that difficult though, despite Kirby swimming around at a pretty slow speed, as Kirby has unlimited breath and can even spit out water as an attack, though there are some abilities that can still be used while submerged. Speaking of which, copy abilities! When Kirby consumes certain enemies, he manifests their powers into his own and can even use them in better ways, replacing his inhale for the time being. I mentioned before that this is their debut game, and while their implementation is much simpler than in future games, with most abilities just doing only one thing, it's such a fun mechanic, becoming another of Kirby's signature techniques. There were over 40 copy abilities conceptualized, and 25 being included for the final game is a very impressive number. This will also be the first game to include pause descriptions for each ability, giving you some nice flavor text to read at your leisure. The signature drawback of copy abilities is that every time Kirby gets hit, it gets knocked out of him as a star, and he can also discard abilities at will this way. If Kirby wants that ability back, he has to chase after the star and eat it again. However, actually trying to get back a lost ability is really difficult, as the star moves super fast and despawns quickly. Also, getting hit by certain elemental attacks like fire or electricity trigger a new animation that keeps Kirby in hit stun for longer, and you could pretty much kiss that star goodbye. It can even be destroyed by Kirby's other attacks like the Star Spit and Air Bullet. These copy abilities also allow for more diverse enemy behaviors, some of which are surprisingly annoying if you do not approach them properly. Blade Knights and Sword Knights give sword, but they are quick on the draw with their attacks, can do a double combo, and even deflect projectiles like cutter boomerangs. They're probably the most challenging enemy to deal with regularly because of their attentive behaviors. Bombers give the all-powerful screen nuke that is Crash, but that also means they are just as dangerous. They're usually positioned next to ledges, so when they fall, their explosion will hurt you if you're too close, though it also kills everything else on screen. Hotheads give fire, but for an enemy that appears so early on in the game, they have a tendency to attack instantly, either with well-aimed fireballs or a constant flurry of fire breathing. They're definitely beginner's trap material. I'll try my best to look at most, if not all, copy abilities briefly. To start, there's a good mix of offensive and defensive abilities. Fire lets Kirby burn enemies to his delight, covering a nice area in front of him. Spark envelops Kirby in electricity, a very good defense that protects him from almost everything, even projectiles. Beam is the very first ability Kirby gets, and although it does weaker damage than most, it covers a wide area in front of Kirby, making it an easy weapon to use, but also a sneaky puzzle solver put to the test for some of the more devious goodies, sealed away by bomb blocks that only Beam can reach. Stone only drops straight down for attacking, and while it is powerful, its main use is providing Kirby with complete safety from enemy attacks until he pops out. Sword is the first ability that Kirby holds separately at all times, giving Kirby ways to perform grounded and aerial attacks separately, and it can also be used underwater. There are some abilities that end up being too similar to each other if you don't look at their nuances. Ice is a counterpart to fire, and aside from freezing enemies into ice cubes that you can kick, they both attack the same way. Yeah, ice is a little bit smaller in attack range and does less damage, but those are the nuances I'm talking about. Freeze is a similar case, being a counterpart to Spark and having virtually the same trade-off. Hammer is also very similar to Sword, and despite being able to pound stakes and break metal blocks for puzzles, has the opposite trade-off. However, being slower and short-ranged but stronger does not benefit Hammer most of the time, as it mainly suffers from the game eating button inputs, more often than desired. You'll try to attack enemies in a flashy way and wound up getting hit thanks to the game not registering. Kirby's Adventure also suffers from a lot of slowdown, depending on the number of enemies and the ability you have. It's most noticeable with using Spark just about anywhere, making it difficult to carve out a fast pace without getting bogged down by slowdown and missed input. If you compare this to the 3D Classics version on the 3DS, which fixes all the technical issues including these, the difference is night and day. Back to copy abilities. Another problem I noticed is that the long-range abilities typically perform better against enemies than the shorter-range ones. Because outside of bosses and mid-bosses, every enemy still dies in one hit. As much as I like Cutter for the large boomerangs, and Laser for its infinite range, they make the game much easier to move by overall. It's not that these abilities are that much better overall, it's more so that shorter range abilities like Hammer have worse performance and become more risky to use because of the technical issues. Some abilities that are centered around mobility are super fun and manage to squeeze out a lot of variety. I'll never forget getting Wheel for the first time and shredding through that desert without a care in the world. High Jump is more situational, but is given many vertical areas to tear through quickly, and is even treated to a unique set piece in one of the boss fights. Fireball, better known as Burning, is a flaming tackle that's admittedly much riskier to use without landing on enemies after the attack ends, but timing your attacks are put to good use for certain areas. This one stage uses the Poppy Bros Juniors as a visual indicator for when you use the attack to cross over spikes, a really subtle but effective method. And there's also Parasol. It's easy to dismiss this one as a weaker version of Sword, but Parasol has many passive features that are fun to mess around with. Your Parasol stays above Kirby at almost all times to protect him from aerial attacks, and Kirby slowly drifts down while airborne. Both of these are put to the test in certain challenges, and the latter can even cancel into an instant faceplant. The more elusive abilities to find are insanely good, borderline OP. Backdrop is easily my favorite ability in the game. You only get it a few times as the mid-boss Bugsy is the only source and he appears in 3 levels, but man, it carries you really far until you're encouraged to switch. You have 6 different ways to wrestle enemies. You can jump forwards, backwards, short hop to break their spines, mid-air slam dunk, and even a high jump that you can influence. In addition to its flexible mobility, you can even keep hold of an object to deal massive damage to mid-bosses. It's like you're bludgeoning them with your newly found ammunition. You can even slam Shatzos with this thing. Tornado is easily the best ability in the game. You can rip through whole waves of enemies while invincible and still have near complete control over your speed and altitude. And it eats mid-bosses for breakfast. UFO is the most difficult to find, as some of the enemies are in tucked away areas or hit you when you least expect it. But once you find it, UFO provides unrestricted flight, even through water, and you have access to the attacks of Beam, Laser, Star Spits, and even Double Stars. It's insanely powerful once you get your hands on it, but the catch is, you can't take it to the hub worlds. Another new mechanic is Mix. By swallowing 2 enemies with copy abilities, you can spin through random abilities, or let it land on a specific ability, depending on the combo. For example, although UFO enemies only appear in 5 stages in the entire game, you can get it in other stages by inhaling either 2 stone enemies or Stone and Needle. This mechanic is even put to use for certain challenges. This one area requires Hammer to open it up, and if you don't want to backtrack to a previous level to get it, you can inhale Burning and Spark for a guaranteed hammer. Also, you gotta love Kirby getting a bartender gig and mixing up a martini. Sleep is one of the more infamous abilities for locking Kirby into a helpless slumber, but it's more so something you gotta watch out for, as it avoids swallowing the naughties that doze off. It's really a funny surprise more than detriment, but what would surprise you are that some abilities are so sloppy that make Sleep look good. Needle has the same premise as Spark and Freeze, but is straight up worse. Although Needle does the same damage as Spark, it covers less range, and Kirby is poorly protected, so an enemy like Blade Knight can slash right through his spiky exterior. Kirby also cannot hold the attack forever. It automatically ends after 1.5 seconds, which doesn't mix well with its longer startup and end lag. Ball is awkward, as the main way to do damage is to keep yourself bouncing at high speeds for max velocity. When Kirby is flashing, he'll do damage, and it's one of the strongest attacks in the game. But he doesn't bounce off ceilings, which kills your momentum and leaves you vulnerable in tighter areas. Really, the best thing I could say about Ball is it gave the developers ideas for spin-offs later down the line. Probably the worst ability in the game is Light. By inhaling a cool spook, you can illuminate dark rooms. The thing that makes it completely worthless is, enemies are not affected in any way, there are only 2 dark rooms in the entire game, and you don't need the ability to traverse these dark rooms anyway. There's a faint purple outline across the terrain, so you can see just fine, and ironically enough, it looks more appealing than the Lights On palette. Really, the only reason to ever use Light is for one puzzle in the second room, revealing an otherwise hidden door, which you don't even need the ability to walk into for repeat playthroughs. As far as the game's scope is concerned, we have something much more ambitious than Kirby's Dream Land ever was, going from just 5 mere stages to a massive 40, divided across 8 levels: Vegetable Valley, Ice Cream Island, Butter Building, Grape Garden, Yogurt Yard, Orange Ocean, Rainbow Resort, and the Fountain of Dreams. These levels start off with shorter stages and smaller numbers of them, but they eventually get longer, more complex, and more numerous over time, with the Fountain of Dreams being home to the final boss. Overall, a regular playthrough for me lasts around 2 hours, which is really impressive playtime for an NES platformer. And fun fact, if you make an acronym of the first 7 levels alliteration, you get VibCure, which marks the colors of the rainbow in reverse, and the frames in each level's intro reflect their corresponding color. The first 7 levels also have hub worlds to give Kirby some downtime in between stages, and these are played just like the stages, making them feel much more immersive and letting you revisit any stage that you've beaten, or exit them if you enter something by accident. Hub worlds also have bonus rooms to give you a helping hand. Museums give out 1 or 2 abilities for free if you ever need a slight push. Arenas have isolated mid-bosses, so Kirby can fight them for a Maxim Tomato and for their ability, in addition to becoming a gladiator. Warp Star stations offer fast travel in case you need to go somewhere specific, like getting a certain copy ability for the next area. I also gotta give shoutouts to the level intros, putting Kirby in hilariously cute predicaments. Vegetable Valley sees Kirby cheat his way out of losing a sword duel. Ice Cream Island reveals the side effects of the missing Star Rod. Butter Building exposes a sabotage, courtesy of Poppy Bros Sr., that doesn't end very well for Kirby. And Orange Ocean punishes his lack of balance with a shark attack all across the ocean. There are also 3 types of bonus games, to give Kirby a nice and simple minigame to play for a chance at 1-ups. All of them have a single button control scheme, and they're a nice way to take a break from the action. The first of which is Crane Fever, putting you in control of a claw machine to grab Kirby's in exchange for 1-ups. Regular Kirby's reward a single 1-up, and Fat Kirby's reward 2 1-ups. You only have 2 chances to do it, so it's the only minigame where you can get 4 1-ups. And with the Fat Kirby's being much harder to collect, with only a few frames of leeway, it puts a lot of pressure on you to get it right. You know if you guarantee to catch if the big Kirby is perfectly still, but if he's shaking a little bit or dangling by his feet, the chance of him falling out is high, but you can still clutch. Overall, it's a slow but fun minigame that rewards patience and precision. My favorite minigame is Egg Catcher, a thrill to play. King Dedede throws a mix of eggs and bombs, and Kirby has to eat as many eggs as possible while shielding away the bombs, or they'll blow up in his mouth and end the minigame. It creates a frantic thrill of opening and closing, mixed in with reflexes and observation of what's coming your way. If Kirby survives to the end, he'll release the baby chicks that hatched inside him, and catching all eggs successfully will reward 3 1-ups for your best performance. There is one stinker, and that's Quick Draw. The original take on Pure Reaction was cowboy themed, and would become a staple template for future minigames in one way or another. This version specifically, though, suffers a bit thanks to some detrimental input delay, making it impossible to beat with regular reaction. Since the game is specifically designed for low latency CRT TVs, it becomes a guessing game with the last 2 reaction times against Bonkers and King Dedede, and you're not likely to beat King Dedede unless you miraculously guess correctly. That being said, there's still fun to be had with this one, as Kirby changes his weapon after every other opponent. Against Waddle Doo and Starman, he uses a standard rifle, then switches to a bazooka for Blade Knight and Bonkers. And I'll admit, seeing Kirby suddenly unleash a massive cannon against King Dedede is always pure hype. These minigames also have difficulties, level 1, 2, and 3. The main playthrough has most minigames at level 1, with the last instances of them being level 2, but anything higher than level 1 is insane and unnecessary with how much it gets cranked up. The crane not only moves faster, but also has momentum when you try to stop it. The arcs and gravity for the eggs and bombs speed up instantaneously, as if they're trying to dive bomb Kirby. And as for Quick Draw, well, I don't have to explain myself on that one. Despite this, the full game itself has a well-balanced difficulty curve. It starts out very easy in the first few levels, but does pick up to a reasonable degree. Compared to Kirby's Dream Land, it's a gradual balance between the simplicity of its normal game and the insanity of Extra Game. It even carries over some ideas from Extra Game, like hostile parasols coming after Kirby, but at a slower speed to eventually surprise the player. There's also genuinely tough sections where it's easy to die, like this one area with shooting stars being a source of wind that pushes up or down, and you need to move very cautiously or you'll get shoved down a pit. The level design itself is smart, because now with the inclusion of copy abilities, it's important to balance the pacing of a level if players want to make the most out of each copy ability they come across. It's safe to say Kirby's Adventure uses this to its advantage, with building more and more puzzles over time. Sure, you can try to hold on to your favorite across the whole game, but you are encouraged to switch often in order to make the most out of the game's flow. Puzzles start out pretty simple, usually rewarding you for just having the ability in a certain area, but do get more complex over time, and some of these puzzles have interesting solutions to them. For example, Ice Cream Island uses this 1-up to teach you about laser bouncing off slopes, a trick used for multiple sections across the game, and still earning you 1-ups even as far as Rainbow Resort. Wheel is also put to the test for a 1-up in Grape Garden. You have to race the explosion of a bomb block and take turns at the right moment to keep ahead. This is also where big switches come in. Appearing in most levels, big switches can be pressed to unlock more bonus doors, like minigames or museums in the later hub worlds. You'll be aware if you've missed them in a stage, as the door will still be flashing orange and there will be a big chunk of wall that'll get in your way. The big switches help add a layer of exploration and puzzle solving, and since they are the only real requirement for 100% besides beating the game, the most interesting puzzles will reward you with the big switch. I'd say Yogurt Yard is where they really start to make you think, like the combo of having to use fire to light a cannon fuse, then switching to high jump to make it there on time. I do find it strange that whenever you enter a minigame or touch a big switch, your health is automatically restored to max. This feels like an oversight, as there are many big switches with pep drinks or Maxim tomatoes right next to them, and with the minigames, you don't even have to perform well to get the health fill up. It takes away from the purpose of the arena, having to put your current condition at risk so you can actually earn that Maxim tomato. Across the 40 stages, there's a near endless number of secrets and challenges to uncover. Vegetable Valley might be the most basic level in the game, but it's home to some wild secrets, like being able to uncover a hidden UFO as early as the very first stage, or discovering the first ever HAL room in the series. Butter Building recycles a concept from Castle Lololo, a room where doors take you all over the place, but tucked away among these doors is a 1-up, booby trap to reveal spikes around it. Butter Building and Grape Garden introduce puzzles where you use hammer and stone to pound stakes for a 1-up, and this is later challenged in Yogurt Yard, where you'd need to time stone properly to avoid dropping into a pit while making off with the 1-up, and carry hammer through an entire stage to break these sturdy blocks underwater for a big switch. It's also continued in Orange Ocean, which tasks you to mix 2 Sparkies for stone, or carry stone from an isolated 1-up room. Yogurt Yard even starts playing mind tricks on you with how some 1-ups are stashed, such as exploring the underside of a mountain, or just entering a door that looks like you came out of it, among a series of other doors. There are also many hidden doors noticeable by paying attention to the aesthetic of an area. In Vegetable Valley, the very first 1-up is actually not protected by Shatzos on both sides, but instead an opening in the wall at the top of a staircase, probably the most elusive goodie in the entire game. Going forward, hidden doors are more noticeable as silhouettes in the background, or a result of an oddity in the level design, such as one block in Grape Garden that's purposefully out of line with the others. Yogurt Yard has a hole shaped just like a door, and what do you know, it contains a Maxim Tomato, 1-Up, Big Switch, and even a shortcut to the end. Orange Ocean pulls several tricks with this, such as a hidden door behind a bomb block that floods the area, but also this one puzzle where Kirby can enter these two doors for 1-Ups, but the goodies always seem to appear on the other side. To get them, you actually have to enter the windows, a creative trick if you ask me. And there's a random alcove underwater that's just begging to be inspected. In general, there's a huge number of 1-Ups, being a consistent reward for exceeding the game's expectations. And if you know me, I like to go out of my way for these babies. In fact, they're the most common goodie in the game, with a total of 40 found across the stages. It's possible to hit the max limit of 99 on an average playthrough, but it's very difficult to do so. You need to get consistently good results on Goal Game and the 3 minigames, and you can just barely reach 99 by the time you're wrapping up Rainbow Resort. I also like how more 1-Ups are rewarded per level as you progress further, with the first 4 levels having 2 to 4 1-Ups each, then the next 3 having 7 to even 13 1-Ups packed together. A big challenge in Rainbow Resort is the last cannon. The solution is simple, but it's practically frame-perfect racing the fuse, made trickier with Kirby bumping his body everywhere. But the reward of 5 1-Ups cannot be ignored. A must for any 1-Up hoarders out there. Oh, I forgot to explain Goal Game, a very simple minigame played at the end of every stage. This is where they were first introduced, and the goal is to launch Kirby when he reaches the very bottom of the trampoline. It's very fun to shoot for the ever-present objective of reaching the very top, as Kirby will be rewarded with a nice 1-Up for his precision. It also features a clever secret that even I didn't know about recently. If Kirby lands on the platforms in the order from number 7 to number 1 in a row, over the course of 7 stages, you'll be rewarded with freaking 30 1-Ups! Absolute madness of an Easter egg. Most of the levels are varied in their layouts and challenges, but there's a good number of memorable set pieces that show the full potential of the NES. Every stage in Butter Building, minus the first, has a section where you walk around the outside of the tower, giving it this really cool 3D effect. Grape Garden has this massive fleet of blimps and airships, with turbulent wind blowing you forward, and a dynamic scale to the whole area with paths intertwining every which way. Yogurt Yard blasts you to the sky from the bottled-up pressure of a mountain, and coupled with the expansive pirate ship in Orange Ocean, it really feels like an adventure, with Kirby going to so many places. Rainbow Resort is home to the first Mid-Boss All-Stars Tower, where you have to fight 7 of the 8 mid-bosses, one after the other. You can also enter a hidden door just above the entrance to fight 4 of the more aggressive variations, and the reward is a whopping 5 1-Ups. The last stage in Rainbow Resort is a condensed homage to Kirby's Dream Land that illustrates the main 4 stages from that game in black and white, complete with the moon secret of bubbly clouds holding the final big switch, also the final 1-Up and Maxim Tomato. It even plays the Green Greens theme at a lower pitch. On the subject of visual set pieces, this is a very pretty game, with some of the best graphics ever made for the NES. There's all kinds of backgrounds, featuring serene lakes, dense forests, large flowers and bulbs, castle architecture, mountain peaks in the distance, and the many stars and nebulas of space, among others. Some of these, like the Northern Lights, have a very graceful animation. It's all technically very impressive and distinct. Fun fact about these graphics, they were actually drawn traditionally before a different artist reworked and mapped them into digital tiles, which allowed for a higher level of artistry. The soundtrack for this game is also very good and expansive. Many songs are memorable and serene with tranquil motifs, like Grape Garden and Rainbow Resort composed in wondrous 3x4. Others like the title theme, Vegetable Valley, and Ice Cream Island are a bit more hyper and bouncy, but still joyous, and I always get a kick out of listening to them. But my favorite songs would be Butter Building and Yogurt Yard, and although the latter first plays in a much earlier stage, I could recognize it instantly when I got to the namesake level for the first time. Different from most NES soundtracks is that Kirby's Adventure doesn't use the triangle for its bassline, but for more bouncy arpeggios in the upper register. And certain songs like the boss theme are made juicier thanks to the sampled percussions delivering a wild load of bongos. Every hub world has music too, shorter tunes that are still effective in conveying the mood of a level. Now let's go to mid-bosses, which we now have a bigger variety of with a whopping 8 of them, and most of them have fun patterns. Since some of them give exclusive copy abilities, you can now swallow them up, and it's really satisfying to consume an opponent so huge. Poppy Bros Sr. is pretty much the same as before, and while you can fight him the same cheesy way without an ability, his bombs become much more dangerous when you have to fight him with melee abilities, as the bombs can easily blow up in your face. In addition to giving the powerful crash, there are a few cases of fighting twin Poppy Bros Seniors at once for extra mayhem. Grand Wheelie does what you would expect of a giant wheel, but he does have the capacity to fake you out with his turns and such. Mr. TikTok can produce many notes to fly everywhere, and can mix up his force field of sound by sliding forward or jumping up to catch you. Plus, he's the main source of the 3-use mic. Bugsy is my favorite, as he can backdrop you in aggressive ways, with his ladybug minions probably being the most interesting projectile out of any other mid-boss. He's also one of the few who can grab you right out of contact-based abilities like burning or ball. Bonkers is the most common mid-boss, and while he is more patternized, he has just enough mix-ups to watch out for, charging at you to pound his hammer once or multiple times, and his jumps serving as a way to catch a flying player or dodging slow attacks. Fire Lion is the last mid-boss you come across, but a deceptive one at that. With quick movements, claw swipes, a large pounce, and flaming tackles, he'll have you scrambling to avoid becoming Kitty Chow Chow. Overall, it's a very memorable set of mid-bosses, but out of the main 8, there are only 2 that falter in comparison to the rest. Mr. Frosty is probably the most simple one of all, with staying in one place and giving free ice blocks. Also, his charge is very slow, and for some reason he has less HP than other mid-bosses. Whereas the rest can tank 3 stars worth of health, Mr. Frosty can only tank 2. There's also Rolling Turtle, and despite being the only source of throw in this game, he's the most obnoxious and out-of-place mid-boss, on top of looking like a total incel nerd. Stupid buck teeth. His pattern is almost too similar to Bugsy, even ripping off the body slam grab. His roll is much faster, but somehow less interesting to dodge, and he throws his unborn children along the ground as fodder. What a coward. It makes sense why he squirms on the ground after being killed. Now imagine that puckered up nerd face squealing for mercy as Kirby digests him and erases him from existence. Good thing Fan took his place in the remake, am I right? Throughout the game, Kirby comes across a new character known as Meta Knight, a mysterious figure who switches back and forth between friend and foe. In fact, out of the 5 invincibility candies you come across, all but 1 are given by Meta Knight himself. Even after you win against him in his boss fight, he still shows up to give you one last boost. On the other end, he summons his army of followers, a group of foot soldiers proficient in different weaponry, to slow Kirby down, for a total of 5 times. All this helps generate intrigue around Meta Knight's character, as his true motives can only be speculated, though it appears that he's trying to prepare or even train Kirby for what lies ahead. But why would he be doing that if it means betraying King Dedede? Could that mean there's something that we're missing in the grand scheme of things? Only Kirby and his impulsive determination can find out. Meta Knight's army would be aptly known as the Meta Knights, and would become the first instance of Room Guarders, a type of mid-boss that instead resembles a gauntlet of enemies that must be survived before moving on. They do have some problems though. Out of the 4 members, Axe Knights are the most common, with Trident Knights and Mace Knights being the follow-up, but the Javelin Knights only appear in the Grape Garden battle, specifically just 2 of them at the very start. Ice Cream Island's battle has Mace Knights rushing along the bottom floor at high speed, which is only a source of frustration if you brought along weaker abilities. Each member can tank roughly 1 star's worth of damage, and with most abilities having weaker power than that, the fast Masonites will laugh off your attacks and convince you that fighting without an ability is the much better strategy, inhaling them with ease. As such, I'm usually only fighting them with either Backdrop or UFO, abilities that pretty much guarantee victory and can be used in 4 of the 5 encounters. Now, we got the main bosses to cover, with a total of 8 bosses for each of the 8 levels. A few of them make a reappearance from Kirby's Dream Land, yet are given new flavor in the context of this game. Wispy Woods is pretty much the same, but now he's pathetic to any copy ability, stun-locking him until he relents. Even better if you have a defensive move like Spark, which guarantees a quick victory. Krako puts high jump to the test, chasing you through a row of clouds until you ascend to the top. Although his fight is designed in a more linear way, it's very fun getting up there and dodging his new lightning sweep with high jump. King Dedede has some new attack variation, such as stopping earlier than usual when slamming his hammer, going farther with his slide tackle, speeding up his jumps over time, and potentially doing a follow-up combo with his inhale. He's also just as tanky as ever, so it's going to take a lot of ability firepower to wear him down. And he's even got a new attack of replicating Kirby's flying technique, which he apparently had to undergo a lot of vigorous training in order to learn. Out of the new bosses though, there are 2 that really stood out to me as especially fun highlights, bosses that complement the new mechanics. Paint Roller is a speedy artist who can catch you by surprise with his fast movement. He can also draw crude paintings that come to life, and with a total of 8 possible objects, he offers a lot of variety with how you can damage him. You can use Spark up close while he scribbles for heavy hits, or hide underneath him with Parasol for chip damage. He even gives the more powerful screen nukes via Crash and Mike, and with the latter, I accidentally uncovered a glitch that gives you over 250 uses of Mike. Let's just say I was not ready for that kind of power. Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright are a celestial duo that take turns fighting you on the ground, with the other supporting in the air, and the simultaneous attacks they can do add attention in different ways. Mr. Shine rains down shooting stars at random trajectories that can give cover, but you also have just enough time to spit out 3 of them to defeat Mr. Bright. And funnily enough, you can dodge Mr. Shine's boomerang and rolling by crouching. Once Mr. Bright gets to the air, he can unleash a powerful solar beam that generates a total of 4 stars. Although you can eat 1 of them for fire, you can also inhale 2 of them to either get a mix and guarantee wheel, or unleash them as a double star, both of which give you a huge advantage. And in the end, knocking the 2 into each other so they explode is always satisfying. However, there are a couple weaker bosses. Heavy Mole's gimmick is that he carves a path through an underground venue, and you have to keep up with him or the camera will off you. This gets more dangerous at lower health, where Heavy Mole speeds up and goes wherever he wants, putting you in really uncomfortable positions. Or you could just carry over Hammer from the previous puzzle and defeat him in under 10 seconds. He even supplies Hammer from one of his minions, though it is funny that he also provides sleep if you eat the wrong one, screwing you over. Meta Knight will only fight Kirby if he picks up the sword he provides, resulting in what would be an epic duel if not for his janky pattern. Meta Knight likes to keep a set distance until he jumps or runs at you to slash, but there's nothing stopping him from abruptly changing sides and walking right through you. Although his downward thrust from above is very slow, his grounded attacks come out near instantly, almost like he's punishing you for wanting to fight him properly. Him blocking attacks is also random. Even when he's recovering from something, he could just multi-slash right out of it. Since Meta Knight didn't develop his wings yet, the unfortunately best strategy to beat him without taking damage is to fly out of reach until he inevitably jumps and leaves himself open. His upward slash has horrible reach, so he'll never get you up there. On the plus side, defeating Meta Knight will actually crack his mask and reveal his identity. What do you know, he kinda looks like Kirby, and it helps establish more intrigue about Meta Knight's character. Is he embarrassed or self-conscious about how cute he might look? Or does he not want to reveal a possible connection or relation to Kirby himself? More fuel to the fires of mystery. It does suck that you cannot refight bosses in one save file, as their door simply becomes the entrance and exit to the next level in the hub world. There is an exception to this in the form of Versus Boss, a linear boss rush mode that you unlock after beating the game. However, this mode doesn't let you experiment that much with copy abilities, so outside of Paint Roller and Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, you'll be fighting all other bosses in pretty much the same fashion. You also still have to pick up the Star Rod pieces and watch Kirby dance after each boss, which bogs down the pace. Once Kirby defeats King Dedede, he fully restores the Star Rod and makes his way to the Fountain of Dreams, but King Dedede tries to slow Kirby down and warn him, like he's desperate or even terrified of the Star Rod being put back in its place. But why should Kirby listen to him? He has a mission to do. Knocking King Dedede away, Kirby returns the Star Rod, but instead of powering the Fountain of Dreams, a powerful entity is released, a nightmare. The fountain turns dark, corrupted by the strange alien sounds. As Nightmare leaves to spread his influence over Dreamland, King Dedede inhales both Kirby and the Star Rod, launching them up to space and kicking off the final boss fight. I love how cinematic this first phase is. Kirby clashing against the power orb against the backdrop of the moon, and slowly descending through the atmosphere, across rows of parallax that get faster and faster as Kirby loses altitude. The fight itself is a shoot-'em-up, similar to Kabula from the previous game, but is much tougher. Kirby has to lay down a lot of hits using the Star Rod, the first final weapon in the series, to launch off stars, but these stars get taken out by Nightmare's own stars. The boss's attacks come in many variations, from 3 in a row to 3-way spread to sonic waves and crisscrossing a formation of stars. That last one is really specific to dodge. There's even a time limit because of Kirby losing altitude, as failing to defeat Nightmare in time sees Kirby crash into the ground. But defeating Nightmare weakens him and forces him to retreat, Kirby in pursuit with the Warp Star. You're treated to another visual spectacle. As the music gets more intense, the Power Orb assumes his true form and blasts Kirby with stars until he's knocked off the Warp Star and forced to land. The moon has really impressive parallax moving at high speed, and Nightmare's wizard cloak is transparent yet vibrant with its palette shifting. He takes less hits in this second form, and his stars can be destroyed, a sign that Kirby's skill with the Star Rod is growing in strength. But now, Nightmare can only be hit in his weak spot, a tornado-like core of darkness that's usually protected by his cloak. He briefly reveals his core when he throws out stars or tries to ram Kirby, so you need to be mindful of these quick opportunities. It's easy to be reckless and incidentally take a lot of damage, but if you recognize which attack he'll do, you can easily capitalize. His constant teleporting would also become a staple for future final bosses. Upon exploding both the Nightmare's body and a portion of the moon, Kirby learns the truth. The only reason King Dedede broke the Star Rod was to protect the fountain from Nightmare, who tried to control it and drown the residents in the nightmares he creates. Although breaking the Star Rod meant the residents couldn't dream, it was Dedede's only solution to protect everyone and seal away Nightmare for the time being. Thus, as Kirby returns the Star Rod to the Fountain of Dreams and blesses everyone with blissful sleep, we have a plot twist that helps paint King Dedede in a new light, and for Kirby to understand that Dedede maybe isn't a bad fellow after all. Upon beating the game, you unlock Extra Game, which unfortunately is more simplistic and doesn't add very much. All that changes is that Kirby's health is cut in half, you can't save, and all minigames are level 3 difficulty. That alone makes it much harder to 1-ups. I didn't even bother recording Extra Game for this review. I can understand why the modifications aren't impressive compared to Kirby's Dream Land, as the main experience of Kirby's Adventure is already big and ambitious as is, but there are rewards for beating Extra Game. You get a perfect on your file, the best rank out of all the titles, and you unlock the sound test. Not only does it have Kirby bounce around with headphones, but it even has a remix of the title theme from Kirby's Dream Land, exclusive to the sound test. So in the end, I have 33 pros and 15 cons. What can I say? I love this game. Even after picking it up since my first times playing it on the 3DS, I still remember so much about it. The copy abilities were implemented really well overall, and the game struck to near perfect chord, engaging you with its ability-based challenges and puzzles. The bosses and mid-bosses are a highlight, difficulty is well balanced, 1-ups are addicting to collect, and Kirby just feels so good to play. Most of my cons boiled down to nitpicks that hardly bother me, just stuff that's worth mentioning but fail to bog down the experience. It honestly has me wondering how future Kirby games will compare to this one, because this one NES entry set a really high standard, especially coming off clean from the previous game. For a consistent 2 hours of playtime, it's time well spent coming back to. So with that, I am proud to give Kirby's Adventure a rating of 9 out of 10. Amazing! And that's the end of this video. If you like what you saw, consider giving a like and subscribe to my channel. We're so close to that magical 1K milestone, so what are you waiting for? Leave a comment if you have something to say. And as per usual, my Discord server DeMontropolis is in the description. Consider joining if you're new to the channel. I mentioned it a couple times before, but you should also consider checking out the 3D Classics version of Kirby's Adventure. No lag, no sound chip limitations, improved controls, quality of life features. It's a very faithful remake, probably the best way to experience the original version. The problem is actually playing it, as the 3DS eShop is discontinued, but that's for you to figure out. On the side, I've been getting myself busy with some of the many spin-offs around this period. Maybe I'll check those out sooner or later. So with that said, I'll be signing off. Take care, folks.